I want to start with a moment that many caregivers find equal parts baffling and exhausting. You walk into the kitchen and the cabinets are all open. Every drawer has been pulled out. The refrigerator door is ajar. Items that were in one place are now somewhere else entirely, or missing altogether. And the person you're caring for is moving through the space with a kind of focused urgency, searching for something they cannot name. Or you find your car keys in a shoe, your important papers tucked behind a picture frame, a wallet in the bathroom cabinet, a television remote in the freezer, and you don't know whether to be frustrated or worried or both. If this is something you're navigating, I want to offer you something more useful than reassurance. I want to offer you understanding, because the National Institute on Aging's guidance on rummaging and hiding behavior in Alzheimer's reveals something that most caregivers don't know, something about what this behavior is actually communicating, and that understanding changes how you respond to it entirely. Stay with me, because there's a specific reframe in today's video that I think will make these moments significantly less stressful and genuinely more manageable. Let's start with the question that almost nobody asks when rummaging begins. Why is this happening? Not in the general sense of the disease causes it. In the specific sense of what is driving this particular behavior, in this particular person, at this particular time. The NIA's guidance opens with something important. In some cases, there might be a logical reason for rummaging behavior. The person may be looking for something specific but unable to tell you what it is. They may be hungry, they may be bored. Read that again. Hungry, bored, looking for something specific. These are not mysterious or uniquely Alzheimer's-related motivations. These are entirely ordinary human motivations, met through a behavior that looks disorganized and confusing from the outside, because the disease has removed the person's ability to pursue those motivations in the way they once would have. A person who is hungry and can't reliably communicate that hunger, and who no longer trusts that meals will come, or who has lost the concept of meal timing, may search the kitchen and the refrigerator because that is where food has always been. A person who is bored or anxious and has no adequate outlet for that restlessness may move through drawers and cabinets because the activity of searching provides stimulation and a sense of purpose. This is the insight that most caregivers never receive clearly. Rummaging is often purposeful behavior meeting a real need, expressed through a compromised cognitive system that can no longer manage the goal in any other way. When you understand it that way, the behavior stops being senseless, and a behavior that isn't senseless is one you can actually respond to. Let's talk about hiding. Because while rummaging and hiding are related, hiding has its own specific psychological logic that's worth understanding separately. People with Alzheimer's often hide objects, sometimes valuables, sometimes ordinary items, and then have no memory of having done so. The result, from their perspective, is that things are being taken. Missing items become evidence of theft, and the person who was nearby when something went missing, which is almost always the caregiver, becomes the primary suspect. We discussed paranoia and accusation in our previous video. Hiding behavior is one of the primary drivers of those accusations. The person hides something, forgets they hid it, notices it's gone, and their brain constructs the most available explanation: someone took it. Understanding this connection between hiding and accusation doesn't make being accused of theft less painful, but it does something important. It explains the accusation as a downstream consequence of the hiding behavior, rather than as a freestanding delusion. And that means addressing the hiding behavior proactively is also a strategy for reducing the paranoid accusations that follow. This is why doctors rarely explain this clearly enough. The paranoia conversation and the rummaging conversation happen separately in clinical settings, but they are the same story told from two different ends, and knowing that gives you a practical lever. Now let's get into the strategies, and I want to organize these around the core principle that the NIA establishes, which is working with the behavior rather than against it. The goal is not to prevent rummaging entirely. Attempting to prevent it through restriction and confrontation creates frustration, increases agitation, and doesn't address whatever need is driving the behavior. The goal is to make rummaging safe, to channel it productively, and to reduce the opportunities for harm without reducing the person's sense of autonomy and purpose. The first area is safety, and this is non-negotiable. A person rummaging through a home may access things that are dangerous: cleaning products, medications, sharp objects, spoiled food. The NIA is specific: lock up or place out of sight and reach anything that could be toxic or harmful. This isn't about distrusting the person. It's about protecting someone whose judgment about what is safe to handle or consume may be significantly impaired. The spoiled food point is worth specific attention. A person with Alzheimer's may look through the refrigerator for something to eat, but lack the ability to accurately assess whether food has gone bad. The sense of taste and smell, which we've discussed in earlier videos as already diminished by the disease, can no longer be relied upon as a safety check. Remove spoiled food regularly and proactively. Don't wait for an incident. Valuable and important items need to come out of the general household environment entirely. The NIA lists important papers, checkbooks, credit cards, jewelry, cell phones, and keys. If these items are accessible, they will eventually be moved, and finding them again may be genuinely difficult. More importantly, losing them can create practical crises on top of the caregiving challenges you're already managing. Removing them from the accessible environment isn't a loss of the person's autonomy. It's intelligent protection of the household's functioning. Mail deserves its own moment of attention because this is a specific and practical issue that many caregivers encounter and don't know how to address. People with Alzheimer's often handle mail in ways that create real problems: hiding it, throwing it away, losing it in the rummaging process. Bills go unpaid, important communications go missing, legal or financial documents disappear. The NIA's suggestion is practical and specific. Consider getting a post office box. This moves the mail entirely out of the household environment, out of reach, out of the rummaging zone, while ensuring that it reaches a place where a caregiver or trusted family member can manage it. If the home has a yard with a fence and locked gate, placing the mailbox outside the gate achieves the same result with less logistical change. This is a small structural shift that prevents a significant category of downstream problems. It's the kind of proactive adaptation that saves enormous time and stress compared to managing the consequences of lost or discarded mail after the fact. Now we arrive at the section of today's video I want you to stay for, because everything I've covered so far is in the category of prevention and protection, reducing harm, securing dangerous items, managing the practical consequences of the behavior. But there's a dimension of managing rummaging that most caregivers never discover. And it's the most elegant and effective approach in the entire NIA guidance. It's the idea of creating a dedicated rummaging space. Rather than fighting the behavior, rather than trying to eliminate an activity that is meeting a real psychological need, you channel it. You create a space specifically designed for rummaging, stocked with items that are safe, interesting, and appropriate for the person to go through. The NIA's suggestions are specific: a chest of drawers, a bag of objects, a basket of clothing to fold or unfold, a personal box, chest, or cupboard where the person keeps their own special objects, things they can arrange, rearrange, hide, and find. Think about what this does. It provides an outlet for the need that's driving the behavior, the search, the tactile engagement, the sense of purposeful activity, without creating safety risks or losses of important items. It gives the person a domain of their own within the household, a space where their rummaging has legitimate claim and where nothing they do there creates a problem. For a person who has lost so much autonomy and control, having a personal space that is genuinely theirs, a drawer or chest that holds their things, that they can return to, that belongs to them, is not a small comfort. It's a form of dignity. It says, you still have your own domain. You still have a place that's yours. You may need to remind the person where their personal storage place is. That's expected, and it's a small price for the benefit the space provides. Make the reminding gentle and consistent. Point it out naturally when rummaging begins elsewhere. Redirect toward the dedicated space as a matter of course. This approach, working with the behavior rather than against it, is both more humane and more effective than prevention through restriction. And it's the kind of creative, person-centered adaptation that defines excellent Alzheimer's caregiving. Let's walk through some additional practical strategies that make day-to-day management more sustainable. Limiting access to unused rooms is a simple and effective environmental strategy. If the person doesn't need to be in the guest room, the home office, or the basement, keeping those spaces inaccessible reduces the rummaging territory and therefore reduces the scope of the problem. This isn't restriction for its own sake. It's sensible management of the environment that reduces both safety risks and the chaos of finding displaced items throughout the home. Learning the person's hiding patterns is another investment that pays consistent dividends. Over time, most people with Alzheimer's develop preferred hiding locations, particular cabinets, specific spots under furniture, certain spots in the garden. Once you've identified these, you can check them regularly and quietly when the person is occupied elsewhere. You'll find the missing glasses. You'll recover the remote control. You'll intercept the item before it becomes a crisis. Trash cans are worth specific attention. Keep them covered or out of sight. A person with Alzheimer's may not remember what a trash can is for and may rummage through it or inadvertently place important items inside it. Check the trash before emptying it. This takes approximately 10 seconds and has saved more than one caregiver from discovering that something important was thrown away irretrievably. Let's bring everything together with practical actions rooted in what the NIA's guidance actually supports. The first is to investigate the why before responding to the behavior. When rummaging begins, ask yourself, is this person hungry, bored, looking for something specific, anxious? Addressing the underlying need, offering a snack, providing an engaging activity, helping locate something, may reduce or resolve the rummaging episode more effectively than any other intervention. The second is to do a comprehensive safety audit of the home and act on what you find. Medications, cleaning products, sharp tools, toxic substances, secured and inaccessible. Spoiled food, removed proactively. Important papers, financial documents, valuable items, moved out of the general household environment entirely. Mail, redirected to a post office box or secured location. Do this once, thoroughly, and maintain it as an ongoing practice. The third is to create a dedicated rummaging space and introduce it actively. A drawer, a box, a basket of safe, interesting items the person can go through freely. Introduce it with warmth. Here are your things. This is your special place. And redirect to it naturally when rummaging begins elsewhere. This is the most elegant and effective behavioral intervention in the entire guidance. The fourth is to map the hiding spots and check them regularly, quietly, without confrontation, without making the person feel surveilled. Simply knowing where to look and looking there when items go missing reduces the time and stress of recovery enormously. And the fifth is to approach the behavior with consistent curiosity rather than frustration. Every rummaging episode is an opportunity to learn something about what the person needs. The more you understand the patterns, the better equipped you are to meet the needs underneath them, which is the most sustainable and compassionate form of management available. Here's what I want you to carry with you from today. Rummaging and hiding are not random or meaningless behaviors. They are expressions of real needs for activity, for purpose, for food, for the management of anxiety and uncertainty, filtered through a brain that can no longer meet those needs in the ways it once did. Your response to these behaviors doesn't have to be primarily corrective. It can be primarily responsive, asking what need is present and finding a way to meet it that works within the reality of where the person is now. The dedicated rummaging space is the perfect embodiment of this philosophy. It says, I see what you need. I'm going to create space for it. You are still allowed to have your own domain. That kind of creative, compassionate adaptation is what excellent caregiving looks like in practice. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make the news. But it changes the daily experience of a person with Alzheimer's in ways that are real and significant. You are building this kind of care, one small adaptation at a time. That is meaningful work. And you deserve to know it. Before you go, here's something I want to plant in your mind for our next conversation. We've covered a great deal of territory in this series, from the biology of Alzheimer's through the daily practicalities of caregiving at every stage. But there's a topic we haven't explored yet that I think sits underneath all of it. It's about communication, specifically, how to talk to a person with Alzheimer's in ways that actually reach them, that reduce confusion, reduce agitation, and preserve connection across every stage of the disease. The specific language choices, the tone, the physical presence that makes communication more effective when words alone are no longer sufficient. This is among the most practical and most transformative skill sets an Alzheimer's caregiver can develop. And it's coming up next. If you want to be there, if you want to keep building the knowledge and skills that make caregiving not just more effective but more humane, subscribe to this channel. Take very good care of yourself. What you do every day matters more than you know.